Nicholas here with Eden Growth Consulting. I just got done making a video about LMA, Leadership Plus Management Equals Accountability, and I get a little hot in that video because I just feel very strongly about it. But I thought I'd make another video that walks you through some steps or some things that you can do to increase and improve your leadership skills. These are things that are easy to, well, I shouldn't say easy, but they are things that you can implement and that will really, really help you to get more from your staff and get everybody on the same page and working together, which is what you want and what we want. So before I say that, if you're interested in any type of leadership coaching, I do always recommend Optimize Success with Dave Hilger or Cindy Garza. They are amazing, and I have personally used them in companies where I come in as the consultant and see right out the gate that these are great people, but they really were lacking some leadership skills just because they don't know. And we hire Dave and Cindy, and it just makes such a world of difference. I can personally attest to companies just making basically a complete 80, 0 to 20% profitability, EOS meetings throughout the entire company. Everybody's on the same page, right? People write seats, data dashboards, but just all of it, right? Within like a 2-year time span. And a lot of it has to do with leadership coaching. So if you're interested in that, just let me know. But in the meantime, if you're not ready for that right now, then I want to give you a few points on the LMA, the leadership piece of LMA. So I just picked 3 things that I see a lot, and that if you could improve these 3 things, this would make a world of difference. So leadership, if you can get better at intentional engagement, this is going to make a huge difference with your staff. So I see a lot of times companies where the COO, DOO, CEO, depending on the size of the company and how involved each one of those people may or may not be with the day-to-day operations of the company, or the integrator, let's call it that, right, within EOS, visionary and integrator. There's not a whole lot of intentional engagement. There's just engagement, right? It's called damage control, basically. Every time somebody's upset and that person's really valuable because they bring a lot of business into the company, then it's always like, oh, got to talk to them, right? And let them rant for 2 hours, right? Or talk about whatever they want, because you can't get off the phone for 2 reasons. Number one, because you don't want to make them upset. And number 2, because there's a certain level of guilt knowing that, like, I have to do this, right? Like I have to let them talk to me and tell me all this stuff, because the real truth is, because you haven't taken the time to engage them proactively from your side of things. They're always coming to you and you're always doing damage control. So that's got to stop, right? If you're going to be a really good leader, you have to proactively engage them. And that means checking in with them, checking on them. Hey, what's going well? What's not? Being prepared when you have those conversations to say, hey, I noticed you're really doing well in this area. The numbers are, in this particular vicinity aren't great, but what can I do to support you? And then actually supporting them. When you do this, you are training them. So you're always training them. Let me just say that right from the get-go. You are always training them. Every employee, you are training them who you are and what's allowed, what's allowable. And we'll get to that more in boundaries, but you're always training them. And so when you have trained them that you don't need to talk to them except via email until they have a problem and they're upset, and so then they call you and then you'll let them talk for 4 straight hours, right? Like, this is not good leadership. This is just damage control. Again, like I said. So intentionally engaging them means, like I said, picking a time, putting it on your schedule, and disciplining yourself to reach out to them and care for them and support them. And when you do that, you train them to realize that, oh, this person, I don't always have to throw a fit and flail my arms and, to get what I need. They actually care. They actually come to me. Now, this takes time, obviously, right? You don't need to call them every day. You can check in with them, once a month, or maybe at the beginning, once every 2 weeks, right? Just to let them see that, oh, like, this person's actually paying attention to me for once. At least that's how they feel. I can tell you right now, I talk to a lot of people inside of companies who have a very different perspective on how they feel about the leadership than the leadership feels about them. And they're both unaware most of the time of the other's perception. So my job is to try to bring those together and get both sides to see the other side a little bit more clearly, but it really starts with the leadership. So actively engaging them. Expectations and clarity, or expectation clarity. So I mentioned this just in passing in the last 5 minutes, but one of the things that I notice is that I'll talk to lots of people within the company. And when I ask them, of course, I've already talked to the leadership, right? And so from the leadership's perspective, oh, yeah, everybody knows exactly what they're responsible for. This is how they feel. They know their KPIs. They know what we're trying to do. Although, on the side, have they ever shared the vision of the company with them? Probably not, right? So that's rule number one. But anyway, but then I'll talk to some of the staff. And when I ask them, do you know how the company makes money? Well, sort of, not really. Do you know how they're profitable or not profitable? No. Do you know the vision of the company? Like, do you know where the company's trying to go in a year, 5 years, 10 years? No. Do you know what your KPIs are? Well, yeah, I do, but do you know specifically what is expected of you? And meaning, like, this is expected, and this is what reward you get, and this is what's expected. And if you don't do that, these are the consequences. No. Now, I know that it sounds like, but we told them, right? Like, we told them when we hired them, this is your role description. And this is what we said that you were supposed to do. These are the expectations. But, 10 years, not 10 years, 12 months down the road, there's been no accountability. We talk about that in another video. If you want to know about how to actually make that happen, it's the management part of LMA, leadership plus management equals accountability. But they don't actually know. They do not have a very clear, in fact, most of them will tell you that, well, I think I kind of know. It's based on whatever the DOO or COO or CEO happens at the time to feel like is on fire. So, this particular thing's important right now, but give it a couple months, they'll tell me it's something else. Right. And so this is a very common answer. And to the leadership team, it seems like, yeah, but we've told them, but you've told them once. Right. And there's a saying, 7 times the first time. They don't hear it, right? They don't truly understand. And on top of that, they probably have a different communication style than you do. So I recently talked to an employee inside of a company who told me this whole, had great conversation, really like her. She tells me this whole story about her last conversation with the CEO and how that went and what went on. And so I walked away thinking that, in good faith, that this is what had actually happened. And I go talk to the CEO later and I said, well, she said, blah, 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 blah. And he said, well, I didn't tell her that. And I said, well, you must have said something about, like, did you talk about this? And it had to do with how much she was making and her getting a raise and when and whatnot. And he said, well, yeah, I mean, we talked about that, but I didn't specifically tell her that was happening. He said, I told her that, eventually we wanted to do this and this and this, and that would mean she would get a raise. And I said, well, she, excuse me, she views that as like, that's what you're doing. Right. But so obviously a miscommunication there. And at the end of the day, that's not something that you're going to eliminate, right? We're all human beings. We all have a different perception of things. We all communicate a little bit differently than the next person. And so what I always tell every company is just document it, right? Like if it's on paper, she knows to ask the question. And if it gets put on paper and you're thinking, well, that's not really what I wanted, well, then say what you want, right? Say what you're actually thinking. And when it's on paper, then she can ask questions or they can ask questions, or maybe there aren't any questions, but it's clear to everyone at that point if it's documented. So different communication styles, but also just basic clarity. Remember, if you sound the alarm every day that, you need to have your task list down, well, that is what the staff are going to focus on. And then if 2 months later you say, oh, revenue's down, well, then that's what they're going to be focused on. And then 2 months later, so they don't like that, right? They want clarity and stability. Nobody likes to come to work thinking that, is my company going to go under, right? I mean, these are all the things that they think about, and these are the reasons why they would leave. In fact, most leadership coaches will market and say, and this is true, statistically, that people don't leave their companies most of the time because of money. They leave because they don't like their manager, right? They don't have good leadership. And so it's super, super important. You spend a lot of money. We all know how much money companies spend training new people. You could eliminate that just by go spend the money on some coaching, right? Go improve these three things from a leadership standpoint. You'll have better retention. And then last is boundaries. So this kind of ties in directly with this intentional engagement. But when you don't have any boundaries, you do two things. People come and flow in and out of your office all day long. There's interruptions. You don't actually get done what needs to get done in your role. And you're doing three things. You're not getting done what you need to get done. You are training those people that this is acceptable, that they can just walk in anytime they want, and that they should actually act this way as well with their own staff if they're in a management or supervisory position. So you're teaching them that. And on top of that, you're now spending all your time on all these little, the little things that people, valid questions, nothing that's wrong, but just these are things that people ask, and you have trained them to do this. And now you're spending all your time on things that are unnecessary for you to have spent your time on. So not only are you not accomplishing what you need to accomplish, but then you don't have the time to intentionally engage the staff who need to be taken care of. So many, many times, and I'm not saying this is always true, right? Because I'm all for employees asking questions and proactively asking questions. But that's what in EOS, that's what the meetings are for, right? Or that's what their supervisor's for. If they're just waltzing into your office because they like you, that's nice, but that's not good leadership. And in the meantime, you're dealing with all of these little things that could be dealt with elsewhere, and at the same time neglecting the people that who are not walking into your office, right? They're probably the people who've been there a long time. They're really good producers. They do a really good job. They kind of keep their head down, but they're also the ones who will, get upset and leave. They will be the ones who take up all your time while you're doing damage control because they're upset about something and you're trying to fix it, when you should have been intentionally engaging them. But you can't intentionally engage them because you have no boundaries. And so people come into your office every day. So when you do have a few minutes, it's like, oh my goodness, I have so much stuff to do. I have to get all this other stuff done. I don't have time to talk to these people, right? And it's just the cyclical nature of things. And so then you just wind up with a big mess, right? And you're running literally like a hamster in a hamster wheel, round and round and round and round we go. And meanwhile, when you go to meet, if you're not profitable for whatever reason, which is another topic, but how can you be accountable and feel good about your meetings with your visionary? Can't do that exactly because you're not really leading properly. And when you can get this in place and you have the management that equals accountability, it will make a world of difference. Things will get so much calmer. You will have time to do what you're supposed to be doing and driving the company forward, fixing all of the issues that you have operationally or within the budget. I mean, of course, there are lots of things that need to be done, and everybody will have expectations and, clarity about the expectations. And you will be teaching them not only that this is who I am, but you're teaching them how to be a good leader, right? When they see this modeled for them, they will see that, oh, this works pretty well. I should do what they're doing. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully, I would love if you're interested in getting some coaching, DM me. I'll connect you with Optimize Success. But in the meantime, here's just some basic things that you can do that will really, really improve things. And hope it was helpful. Talk to you soon.